Hello there, guys, and welcome back to our latest episode in our COVID-19 rapid fire video series. Today, we're going to be exploring how, as founders, as startups, as aspiring entrepreneurs, we're going to be building and growing our businesses after COVID-19. And we have the perfect person to be exploring this with today. Ash Phillips, the very charismatic, wonderfully warm founder of Yena, the Young Entrepreneurs Network Association, who has been around a little while, has some amazing ideas, has been doing terrific amounts actually for the founder community during this period, and has tons of experience and ideas and observations to share with us this morning. So Ash, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, it is absolutely our pleasure. Now we've got a bank of questions to ask you, some really burning questions of the moment as well that we've been collecting up from our community. Are you ready for me to start firing them at you?
Yeah, just about, I think.
Fabulous. Let's see how we go then. All right, let's start with an easy one, Ash. Let's talk about Yena. I mean, it's an incredible organization. I have stood back over the years and watched it grow, watch it change and evolve, watch the feedback and the response from our community. Can you tell us a bit first about Yena and what compelled you to launch it in the first place?
Yeah, sure. So Yena started off as the way you described it, which was a network specifically for younger founders, or what we like to call rebels, people that were trying to find other people like them, but ended up often clashing culturally with the other people they were networking with. They were either older than them or in different sectors or different stages, and just didn't feel like they fit in. That was how I felt at the start. So we launched as a meetup and grew those. But that was around 7 years ago now, and it was honestly an accident turning it into a business. It was never supposed to be one, but around halfway through that process, people started to question what we sold and ask what they could buy from us, and it was a question we never expected, but reacted to. And so bring us right up to date. Yena is now for everyone. We are essentially virtualizing the accelerator experience for anyone, anywhere. Our mission is to democratize business support and democratize entrepreneurship for anyone, regardless of who they are, where they are, their circumstances. It's important to us to know that the barriers that currently exist in the exclusivity of accelerators, or the price point of high-level coaching or non-execs, or often the poor and outdated government support that exists, that there's an alternative. There's a first go-to point for anyone starting and growing a business, and hopefully we can provide enough value that they want to stay with us. So yeah, we're essentially providing business benefits by subscription to anybody who needs them wherever they are.
I absolutely love this. I mean, it's a mission that is one that Ferrelio shares. No small business should struggle or fail if they can't get access to what they need. And there shouldn't be these barriers to core information and critical materials. I absolutely love what you guys are doing, and the democratization, that sort of access to all, come as you are, be who you will want, dream as big as you will, and get the support to actually make that dream happen. I think that's fundamentally important, never more so than now. So thank you so much for everything you do for our community. I absolutely love the energy, the vibe, that sense of possibility that comes from your community. And obviously we love supporting and partnering with you guys too. Ash, let's talk about COVID-19 for a moment. How has your business and your community fared during COVID-19? I mean, you've been doing terrific amounts to support founders and startups during this period, and there has been a real need for that support, hasn't there?
Yeah, so obviously we look at this with two lenses. We've got the first lens, which is how the community is reacting, and then the second lens, which is how we're reacting. And obviously there's an inherent symbiosis there, where we are kind of our community also, so naturally we're going to be doing similar things, but we have an extra responsibility, to paraphrase Spider-Man, because of the power that we have in our small startup community. So yeah, generally what we're seeing from within the Yena community, which, just to clarify to those who don't know what we do, is made up of everyone from idea-based businesses in the back bedroom of their parents' house all the way to £5 million raised, and beyond, all different sectors: lingerie, wine, AI. It's really broad, and so we're seeing a real breadth of the way that people are reacting. But I think the status quo hasn't really changed for founders. Generally speaking, there are obviously morbid circumstances, people having to tighten their purse strings and let people go, unfortunately, in certain cases, if government support isn't there to and they don't fit that criteria. But across the board, the status quo remains, which is that founders always need to just adapt to new circumstances. In difficult challenges come opportunity, and so we're seeing people use this as an excuse to speed up roadmap development, to jump ahead to virtualizing services that they had an inkling they could but never really had a chance to try, and test remote working, which a lot of people are now thinking about sticking to. So that's generally what we're seeing across the board, and it's exactly the same for us. We've done those things too. But there's a couple of things that I can talk about specifically, because of course they're internally, which is primarily the thing that's really been big for us, which is making our product free. So our community, we value a huge amount, and luckily they value us back too. So as a result of this affecting startups and making things more difficult, our job is literally to make running a business easier. So we asked them what they wanted, and we decided that we were going to crowdfund to cover our operational expenses for 2 months, which wasn't a huge amount of money, because we're really lean here, and then provide people with membership support, all the benefits that we provide for free if they need it for 2 months, for new members and old members, current members. That is exactly what we did. And over a month, we saw, it's still going, but over the first 30 days, we saw around 120 people sign up. And that just tells me that there's clearly an appetite for virtual support. In lieu of physical hubs, where do they go? The internet is where they turn, but they need a trusted partner to be able to help their business, and luckily that's what we've seen. So honestly, it was unconditional. They can cancel whenever they like. That's always been the case with Yena. But of course, revenue-wise, we hope they stay. We're a commercial business at the end of the day, but it was really just about helping and making sure there's someone there for them.
Yeah, and it was absolutely brilliant, because I think what it has enabled is the people who are cash-strapped, or who maybe have been furloughed, don't have a lot of money, but have the dream and want to use the time sensibly to go explore. I mean, they can get started, they can get going, they can get the support that they need. And I think that's very, very powerful. There are so many hurdles to starting a business, not least ourselves, that sort of fear of being able to do it, and to start trying these things, to dip the toe in the water without cost, but also in that very embracing community spirit that you have. It's fine to be nervous. This is normal. I think is immensely empowering, and definitely catapults innovative people with great ideas forward. You answered my next question actually rather beautifully, because I was going to ask you, have people still been founding startups during this period? Are you seeing new members? You said just in 1 month you saw 120 signups, which is really encouraging, I think, because our great fear is that what's going on right now will put people off. Because it's too hard, or because it's so unknown, or because you can't just go and have a chat with somebody in a coffee shop and get some comfort, and maybe some encouragement too. So, it's great to hear that people still are forging ahead nonetheless.
Yeah, I think it's important to say at this point that you don't have to. It's my job to tell people they should be exploring the businesses that they want to build. But we're also seeing a lot of what people refer to as hustle porn happening, even more so right now, where people are talking about how you should be using this downtime to develop yourself. You should be using this downtime to launch a business. And you know what? This downtime in lockdown and isolation is affecting people in different ways from a mental health capacity. So if they don't, that's absolutely fine, because it's affecting us in different ways. You might feel kind of limited by this, and that's fine. But the people that are managing to use it as a launch pad are definitely doing so more often. The side hustles that people weren't able to launch because they were commuting to the office every day and then back, and it's essentially taking what should be an 8-hour day and turning it into a 9-10 hour day. Takes up all of their time, but because they're working at home from the home office, they're doing lunch in 20 minutes and they're not commuting. It's giving them more time to work on the thing that they're really passionate about outside of work. So we've seen everything from somebody selling confectionery and delivering locally to people that are now running virtual conferences on a global capacity. So there's lots of different types of things that are happening, but the people that are okay right now seem to be using it to be able to drive things forward, and the people that are already running businesses are pivoting, they're spinning things out, not including us. So lots of innovation, obviously forced by morbid times, but I like to find the silver linings, and it's interesting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're seeing exactly the same behavior. I mean, we have a shared community anyway, so that's not surprising, but the amount of experimentation that's going on right now is really fascinating. As you say, some of it is born out of absolute necessity. We just can't continue to do what we're doing now, so we've had to find something else or a variation on a theme. But some of these variations, some of these sort of, I think what were intended to be temporary diversifications are turning into some really exciting businesses all of themselves. And we've had some truly amazing conversations with a couple of businesses who said, we thought we were going down, we did something completely different, and now we've got this kind of rather difficult choice of everything's getting back to normal, previous customers are coming back, but we've kind of fallen in love with what we were doing here too. So now we're having to grow and take on money, and look, we have proven traction and great models, so we can get some money, which is great, or we're going to go crowdfund to be able to continue to do both things. So I think you're right about silver linings. I think it's about making sure there is a level playing field for people to be able to explore that journey to finding the silver lining that is where Yena really plays such a key role. Ash, I wonder if I can talk to you about your observations, looking at what's going on in your community on government reliefs and the schemes that are available. Have you seen your members applying, particularly the more advanced of your members? Have they been applying for these government schemes? How are they finding the process? Are they getting success at the end of it?
Yeah, we're seeing them talk about it a lot, and I think far less than applying for it. And I think there's a barrier there, which I'll get to. But generally speaking, I think there's a lot of not disappointment, but a lot of frustration in the fact that people fit somewhere between the support that is on offer. And the people that do match that criteria are really thankful for it. A lot of people are using the grant programs, or at least applying for the Future Fund. But there are a lot of people, including us, that fit somewhere between there, where we don't actually qualify for any of that support. And you don't want to be walking around as a business with your hand out, because that's when things get dangerous on your cash flow. But in times like these, it can't be helped. And so there are a lot of people that who already feel isolated, that then feel even more isolated because even the government's not coming to save them. And the people that are applying for these programs, I'd say it's a 50-50 split between the people that really agree with the terms of them to the people that don't. The Future Fund, classically, I don't know whether it's been reviewed yet, but previously was quite aggressive on the terms front. Although, of course, you turn the government into a private business, and then you say, well, of course it's going to be, because they're looking for their return, but it's just because of the government we're expecting them to be more lenient. So there's a lot of conjecture out there. For us, we fit right slap bang in the middle of all the support that's there. So we've had to just go and, who knew, run on our own revenues like a normal business would have to, and innovate. And of course, temporarily crowdfund from our community to be able to make it free. But we're seeing people apply for the small loan scheme. We've seen a couple of people apply for the Future Fund, although I don't know whether anybody in our community's got it. From what I hear, the percentage of application to conversion is very low, so that's unsurprising to me. And we've seen a couple of people, including ourselves, apply for the Innovate UK grant that came out, which again had more applications, I think, than reportedly any like all of the Innovate UK applications last year combined, just for this one. So it was unsurprising that we didn't get that, but we did see one company receive the full grant for that too. So it's great that stuff is happening. It's I have no problem if there's any link to the tax that we pay in funding that, because it's really important that we support the ecosystem. But I would like to see more done for the people that fall in between the gaps, because there's lots more than I think people realize.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a trying time for small businesses, and none more so than the startup community, because many of us are pre-revenue. Many of us are still proving that we can get traction. We're still contingent on relationships with customers, some of whom may be big corporate customers who are delaying their decisions, delaying innovation, delaying new purchasing decisions, delaying experimentation while they figure out the impact on themselves as well. And it's not just money, isn't it? Delay is the biggest enemy, actually, of any startup, because we need to be able to prove certain things, and we need to prove them fast. We need to get money in and to be able to stand on our own 2 feet fast. And I think there's lots of these benchmarks saying that, by the time you're a particular number of years old, or you've reached a particular stage, for example, thou shalt be cookie cut into a particular formula. And I think, these times are going to make the cookie cutter completely irrelevant, even if it had a place beforehand. But I think the expectations sometimes of the outside world, and particularly the investment community, about what we'll be like and how ready we'll be and how robust we'll be, is sort of all needed to be quite fundamentally adjusted in these times. So let me ask you, Ash, what in your view, this is probably a really tricky question, but what in your view is the single most needed thing that the entrepreneur community needs right now?
That's a big question. The single thing. I think the entrepreneur community is answered in two ways, right? It's like the people that are already there, or the people that want to be there and aren't. And we span generally across both. And I don't know whether this is too generalist an answer, and I guess I'll dive slightly deeper into it. But for me, the answer would be enablement or accessibility. And what I mean by that is, unsurprisingly, going back to why we run in the first place, which is bringing down the barriers for those that want to start and helping those that are starting to grow. But what does that look like? So the way that we interpret that is that the one of the biggest challenges for people in starting and growing a business is the unknown unknowns. They just don't know where to turn next, because often they're not born in a network of people that have done it, or they're not surrounded by those people. For every 1,000 people that might be living in Bristol where we are, or London where you are, there's probably not too many less doing it in the Lake District or the Outer Hebrides or Alaska who don't have access to those networks or hubs, who are wondering where to go. People that haven't started and want to start, and people that have started and really don't understand where to go next. And of course, that attributes to the massive, always conjecture, trying to figure out what the number is, but the massive failure rate, the majority of businesses failing within their first 1, 2, 3, 5 years. And you have to ask yourself a question. Of course, there's questions around like founder product fit, if you want to start talking about it like an investor would. Is it the right person at the right time in the right market? And there's always going to be failures there, but there's a lot of time, I believe, from the research and the work that we've done over the past 7 years, that it's just simply a lack of peer support, a lack of mentoring, a lack of access to tools, a lack of access to content, a lack of access to networks. If that can be provided to people from day one of the idea, not only day one of the business, then we improve the success rate of businesses across the board, full stop, done. So that's what I think needs to be provided. And if I'm going to put that in a sentence, is probably better connected, more accessible, high quality startup ecosystems that, if they have to be built privately, then they have to be, because people are tired of waiting for the government to do it, because they've got lots of other jobs to do. And so it's not fair to expect them to build the perfect startup ecosystem. Someone's got to do it. We might as well. And so, I think That's what people need. They need a better ecosystem because there are people sat in bedrooms all over the country, all over the world, wishing they could start and not knowing where to go. And that's why we make it our job.
I think that was a brilliant answer, and as a founder all times over, I completely relate to that. Making it easier, giving access to our peers. I mean, 95% of everything that we need. Ed Goodman, Freelance Heroes, is founder, says exactly the same thing. Another brilliant network organization founder for the freelance community in this instance. But he says that 95% of everything that we need to start to grow, to evolve, to feel mental well-being about our businesses actually is contained within the network, within our contacts, within our peer group, in the ecosystem that we build around us. So, when you start a business, particularly in the early stages of your career, you're often not surrounded by the people who are most relevant to starting a business. I know when I founded Frilio, and people said to me, "Oh, you'll be fine because you know all these lawyers." And I had to say, yeah, but none of them know how to found a business. And actually, it's not really so much about law. It's that kind of, it was the golden thread that weaves through everything. But I'm having to teach myself tax, insurance, operational matters, talent management, all these things that, you kind of have an inkling of. But if you go onto the internet, then there's a heck of a lot of white noise that blasts back at you. And all you want really is to just sit down and say to somebody, how did you do it? And can I learn from that? Do you have a blueprint that I can copy? And again, that's what smart startup ecosystems can do. They can help you, pole vault the initial hurdles and the ones that follow, and just give you that great confidence. I think that great competence to go out and show I'm capable, I'm on top of things. Yes, I'm experimenting. Yes, I'm exploring. Yes, I'm learning. But look what I can do, and look what the people around me can do too. And I think you're absolutely right. Smarter startup ecosystems would be great. I think we have them. I think, a means to amplify them, a means to amplify what you do at Yena. We shout loud and hard about you all the time, as you know, but maybe that's what government need to do, actually. Maybe they need to get behind the players that are here already and power boost them, as opposed to reinvent the wheel. I don't know. There's a suggestion, right? Let's write to someone, Ash. Talking about the money, though, Ash, can I turn to the investor community? Obviously, money has been a big theme. It's a big thing for startups, full stop. That never goes away. But the delay that we mentioned earlier, the uncertainty, the inability perhaps to apply for as much funding as normal, and a lot of investors, as we know well, have been pulling out. A lot of private investors who might otherwise put money into crowdfunding have been conserving what's left of their savings, protecting their pension pot. So there's been a lot less money around. How are you seeing investors behave generally towards the startup community? What sort of patterns or trends are you seeing?
I think the main pattern and trend I'm seeing is the classic one when it comes to VC level investment, which is there's a lot of spin. Because that's always the pattern that we see in VC. It's spin all day. It's without trying to tarnish an industry, because I think they do good work. They do really important work. They're managing rich people's money and spending it on interesting companies, hopefully return some more money. It's a simple mathematical equation, but they'll often bulk that up with PR, and the PR that we're seeing during this whole process is that it's business as usual, which 100% it's not. We know that it literally can't be business as usual. Things have to change. They can't meet anymore. Lots of these deals are usually done in person. There's a risk mitigation aspect that people are considering more heavily than normal. And yes, deals are still being done. That's the narrative that is true. Deals are being done, but on the whole, it's less. On the whole, it's slightly more aggressive because people need money more desperately than they did. And so people are getting better VCs on the investor side. People are getting better terms because, whether they like it or not, it's their job to be predatory. We shouldn't necessarily take them for that because they've got to get the best deal they can, like we all do. And so, there are deals being done, often at lower valuations, and the investment ecosystem is still alive. But is it alive and well? Probably not the latter as much. we have a number of companies in our community raising money right now, and we have an investor mailing list that we send out information on what's going on in our community too. We can't officially send deals; we're not FCA regulated, but we're seeing less engagement from those people. They're saying this is a nice idea, but we're not investing anything right now. We're looking inwardly, helping them to grow, to make sure that they survive and make sure that they prosper. So the bets we've already taken come out better on the other side of this, so we can then take more bets afterwards. So it's limiting, but I think it's also kind of allowing us to see the wood for the trees a little bit, where actually people are starting, the people that are able to survive, which is a smaller subset, but the people who are able to survive without the investment, if they've already got into that cycle, are then able to redirect that energy into revenue generation and sustainability, which in turn will allow them to be more fussy about the cap table that they're building and the round that they're raising, from who and from where and why and what. It's giving people the ability to polish their round, I think, regardless of what stage that's at, if it's the first check or the third or fourth or fifth check. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening. Moral of the story is it's not business as usual. There's a lot of new stuff happening, but stuff is happening if you know where to look, and we're trying to be a signpost to point people in that right direction. I don't know what you're seeing.
Pretty much the same, to be honest. Deals still getting done, taking a lot longer, definitely lower valuations. And again, it's not surprising. Investors take an awful lot on risk. They try and do their due diligence. They try and make good bets. And we obviously want them to continue to do that and to feel like the startup community is a good bet, because you're right, we're dependent on investors. They're not the bad guys in all of this. I think it sometimes feels like that after you've done the rounds and pounded the pavements and been rejected multiple times, which is normal. We all do it. We all go there. We all hate it. But I think ultimately, solid business that can prove traction, probably having to prove a bit more traction, probably having to prove more scalability. I think if you are looking at the VC community, then, there's terrific pressure to show scalability, to show this isn't just a small business, it's going to be a large business. So I think the metrics and the criteria have got harsher as the kind of success funnel has got narrower. I think less so in private investors and in the high net worth investment world. They're much more patient, I think, about the longer term gains. They tend to invest a bit more on sort of passionate grounds. I love this project. I love this idea. It's something I want to see succeed. And so I think different behaviors, but they're not different behaviors just peculiar to these times. I think COVID's just kind of magnified those behaviors. But yeah, we're definitely seeing investments happening, just not as many by a long stretch as perhaps this time last year. And I think there is a slightly unhealthy focus on pandemic relevant solutions right now. So are you doing something that's going to be, groundbreaking in medical science and help address pandemics going forward? Or are you going to do something that's going to make the NHS more efficient? So there's quite a narrow focus, which is very much of these times. I think as we start to transition much more fully out of COVID-19 and business starts to get back into more of a rhythm, then we'll see that fall away a bit more. But I think certainly if you're doing anything at the moment in the sort of biosciences, in the medical field, then you tend to get, and obviously AI is always big data is always a big area, but I think you tend to get more attention right now than other folks with completely different sectors or focuses or solutions. But that's what we're seeing.
I think it was just quickly worth saying that the opportunity, if people are thinking about raising funding, mostly of kind of an institutional level, so VC level, but it's probably applies from an angel level too, then actually the time that we're going through right now is very good for opening up initial conversations. And there's a reason for that. It's because the ivory tower effect of sitting in, a Canary Wharf office and, the 100th floor or whatever it might be, isn't happening because they're literally not there right now. The ability to jump on a call like this, a Zoom call with anybody anywhere in the world, means that those barriers have come down. Previously it might be, hey, I'm going to visit the Valley because I want to go and see, as many billionaires as I can in a day because I need a really big check on a really big idea. And that was really, gated by where you're going to find those people, how you're going to find those people, how you're going to line up those meetings, lots of logistics, and the price of a plane ticket. But right now, if you're sat there watching this and wondering, hey, should I be doing that? The answer is, well, actually, you have an excuse not to go, but still jump on that call. And so the ability to tweet someone and open up a doorway to have a conversation is, massively underrated. This week, I've had conversations with people that have invested in companies that I use their products and services daily, and they're willing to have a conversation, which is kind of surprising. Everybody is human, but there are kind of hierarchies. But if that was trying to book a physical meeting in person, that would be far harder than just jumping on a 20-minute call. So top tip, I guess, is don't be afraid to reach out and start building those relationships now, so that when times are better, you've got the chance to have that conversion-based conversation.
Yeah, I think that's such powerful advice. There's clearly tons of scouting going on right now. And I think the interesting thing for me, you can never start too early to build relationships with investors. So build a relationship before you start asking for money. Let them know, keep them updated, get them excited by your progress. Find out whether you even are that good a fit with their portfolio, because there's absolutely no point you wasting your time, having lovely conversations with people where the chemistry is really great, but it's never going to be an investment fit for them in terms of their portfolio. Talk to them about who else they invest in, why they invest, where it's been successful, where it's been harder. Quite often you want to talk to investors at VC level, especially about the businesses. They probably won't name them, they probably shouldn't name them, but the businesses where it just hasn't worked particularly well, and why not, so that you are really, forearmed, if you like, with the kind of knowledge about, is this going to be a place where if I get the opportunity and I pitch and they say yes, I actually want to grow. So all of that fact finding, this is a good time to do it. The other thing that we've noticed is that the Scout community is suddenly much bigger than normal. So in the last week, I've had 2 offers to buy for Really. I have to keep saying, we're not up for sale. And we're not going to the outer regions of Mongolia either. It's not a good fit for the business model. But the scouting community has got much, much bigger, because I think we've all suddenly got very comfortable, exactly as you said, with a Zoom call. So the sort of, initial conversations, are we a good fit for each other, is happening virtually. And then that expands the universe of investors. I had a great conversation with somebody who works in Bristol, brilliant business in prosthetics. They've got investors halfway around the world who are supporting them. So not boots on the ground investors here in the UK, but foreign investment who, fell in love with the idea, absolutely love the product, know that they can help bolster it. And that's the other great thing about the investment community. You've got the time now to do the homework on who's going to accelerate me rather than just give me money and beat me up if I miss a target. Look at the people who can really power boost your connections, your opportunities, know the markets that you want, know the sectors that you might want to get into. And they may not be the people sitting here in the UK. So that's some fascinating, I think, global connectivity coming out of all of this too. Let's talk about another pillar of the startup landscape, Ash, that's, for me, critically important. And I have a personal vested interest because I started Ferrilio and found terrific confidence in working and starting out of a cowork space. Now, coworks have become such a prominent feature of the startup landscape. They have kept us physically connected with each other. It is really easy to go along to a demo night or to sit down with a fellow co-founder over a coffee and say, how did you do this? Can I learn? And obviously to help others coming forward too, maybe to find your future talent and your future team within that environment. Do you see co-work spaces bouncing back from all of this? I mean, we're social distancing right now. What made co-works quite magical in many ways was that kind of huddle. We're all packed in tightly like sardines. We're hearing each other. We're picking up the patter, the jargon, the ideas, the blueprints. Everything gets shared. It's a very democratic environment to build a business and to go learn the ropes. Clearly, none of that is happening right now. It's going to take us some time to get back to being comfortable, being even legally allowed to huddle. How do you see co-work spaces featuring going forward? Sorry, long question. Big question.
I'm glad it was a long question. It gave me some time to think because, it's not something I usually comment on too much, but it's definitely something that we've been involved in, both with people in our community running co-working spaces in different capacities, but also ourselves having been part of a couple too and helped manage some. And I think it's a model that won't go away, first and foremost. It's going to be around in some semblance at some point. But what's happening right now is what's happening across the board for a lot of businesses, is it's sorting the wheat from the chaff, And I don't ever wish ill on any business, and I never wish to see people lose their jobs. But with the rise and fall of WeWork, we're starting to realize that there are models that just don't work. They just don't have the right unit economics to ensure a sustainable business survives. I still don't understand how people looked at the financial model of that business and piled so much money into it, but that's a conversation for another day. I think what we will see is innovation in co-working to, yes, in the short term, make sure that there's enough space between people to observe social distancing rules. But I think that will, in the longer term, start to impact on the ergonomics of the space, how it's organized, focus on quality over bums on seats, and also if the unit economics are possible, the kind of fruition or blossoming of co-working spaces that allow transient working across multiple sites. People are looking at more nomadic kind of cultures right now. And even ourselves, we've been looking at moving maybe to a new office, maybe in a new city. Lots more of that to come later, I'm sure. But the idea was to build an office in a hub with lots of people in the office and then have that culture built there, with the option for remote if people wanted it. We're actually probably switching that a little bit more, where the office will still be there because we still want to build a central hub with a culture, but it's actually more likely to be a few days in for a few people on an ongoing basis, with everybody else working remote by default. And I think a lot of companies are going to see that. So co-working spaces have a job to react to that, enable themselves to survive and build a commercial model that makes the most of that new culture shift. If they can, they'll obviously die, but the ones that remain will hopefully prosper from having realized a few of those things along the way. So yeah, I'd like to think that Bristol's seen a massive explosion of co-working spaces over the past 24 months, I would say. We've gone from what I guess was one at the engine shed-ish to probably 20 plus co-working spaces of different kinds. And you have to ask yourself a question around supply and demand. And I think that was coming at some point anyway, around how the demand just didn't, or the supply just far outweighed the demand at one point. There is an argument how the supply actually creates the demand, because the awareness of co-working as a cultural phenomenon for working actually creates working big companies. Creates the question for big companies to say, hey, maybe we should explore this as an opportunity. HSBC and WeWork being obviously a good example of that. It's a chicken and egg, but yeah, I think the ones that were flying by the seat of their pants and just hoping it would work will unfortunately probably not make it through, but the ones that had solid models will just innovate and will hopefully see, as I say, better quality rather than quantity after this time, with more transient focus. So yeah, I'm looking forward to hopping over to Dubai and working on a remote Regis office over there, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, there's opportunity as with everything, but it's definitely going to be a bumpy road for the sector, I think.
Yeah, I agree too. I'm fascinated actually by the number of corporates who are saying to people, don't come back to the office anytime soon, work remotely, and whether actually co-work spaces will start to soak up some of that responsibility too, or that opportunity too. So, if you don't want to work out of your front room because it really is a challenge with the dog and the kids and whatever else is going on at any one particular time, then, will we see more corporate workers coming into the co-work environment and sort of hot desking the way that we've all got used to on a day-to-day basis? But it will be interesting. And it's really on that note, Ash, that I want to get the crystal ball out again. So my next question requires you to do your Mystic Mag with us. But this is a big question for me, and it's one that fascinates me because I've watched the success of organizations like Yena over the years. Do you think, particularly given everything that we've experienced with this pandemic, that more and more of us are going to be turning to virtual networks, virtual resources, platforms such as yours to be building our businesses and creating community and network around us in the future?
Yeah, it would be silly of me to say no. I get up every day because I believe that wholly to be true. It's definitely, there is no future where that can't be the case. In my opinion, it's quite aggressive opinion, but for me, that's the way the world's going. There was a point in the past where we were all connected by these devices in a social capacity, and we're being connected digitally in a business capacity too. Zoom's share price is a good example of that actually happening. And the prevalence of LinkedIn obviously is the only weirdly business platform that really exists that we all use. So I think we're innovations in that space, and I think we're going to be working more virtually, more remotely. I think if I'm getting the crystal ball out and making some sector-based assumptions is what will happen. Thinking about the co-working space, I think what we'll actually see is leisure and hospitality start to innovate on this side. Unused space in sports arenas, unused space in hotel lobbies, cafes and restaurants innovating to allow for longer seated periods where they can work in the same way that Starbucks is obviously used as a transient office at the moment. We'll probably see more of that happen. I think from an individual basis, because of the realization that this ivory tower effect doesn't really need to impact people, and actually we can be more human by just jumping on a call and having a chat with people in their own living room somewhere else in the world, it means that we will hopefully, fingers crossed, see more cross-sector, cross-stage, cross-socioeconomic collaboration and borderless business. So business done, cross countries, especially in, the fallout from the EU and Brexit, whether you agreed with, a leave or remain outcome. What's happened is happening, or slowly, but hopefully, probably, surely, I don't know. But the reality is that people will just continue to do business because the internet exists. And so we'll see more people doubling down on that, with more platforms enabling that to happen, and more people utilizing those platforms for it to happen. And so that's generally how I think the world will be going. We're seeing virtual conferencing platforms taking off right now, and I don't think they'll just be an overnight success that will die post-COVID. I think it's one of those industry catalysts, like time-based catalysts that spark that as a cultural phenomenon, but then keep it. It's something that, I'm unlikely to be Zoom calling my family every single week from now forever, but I am likely to continue running virtual events for our community, because bringing people into one room, quote unquote, from all different parts of the world at the same time is something we've not really thought about being able to do before. So lots of little things will add up to a big change, I think, in the way that people live and work. And hopefully what comes next for us is enabling more of that to happen in a better, faster way.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? There's this sort of very intense period of being remote and having to connect virtually has made people who I think would have been, and businesses who would have been very reticent, very anxious about this kind of connectivity, security of data, is it appropriate? Is everybody comfortable? I mean, we've all been forced into it, but actually it's becoming habit forming. I think we're now comfortable with talking to the pinhole on the laptop and, chaos reigning in the background at times. So, the virtual world has really literally come into the sitting room, come into the bedroom. It's becoming a part of our lives. And I think that habit, that comfort is something that many of us will continue to do going forward, but it will start to become, it already is for many of us, I think, becoming instinctive. I'm going to just Zoom somebody or Slack call somebody or find out something using my fingertips, not necessarily physically trundling up the road. So goodness only knows what that means for fitness. Anyone with health startups who can somehow manage to get us away from the cameras long enough to stay fit, Joe Wicks and others, we salute you. You've been keeping us healthy. We're going to need more of that going forward. But yeah, I mean, I like you think that virtual is here to stay, and that more and more of us will get much more comfortable about doing this kind of thing to build, to start, to grow our businesses going forward. Ash, my final question is really what next for you? What next for Yena? You gave a subtle hint earlier about new sort of plans in the works for you. Can you share any of that with us finally today?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can't stop talking about it at the moment. It's my job, right? There are a few things that I won't mention just yet, but I'll try and give you a couple of little scoops on what we're doing. I think, the tagline for the future of where we're going is almost, and don't completely forget, but to kind of forget everything you think you already know about what Yena is and where it's being. Because the challenge for us, just candidly, in talking to potential investors at the moment, is that we've been around for a while as a company. We're not just a 6-month MVP startup that's tried something and thought of a product that could solve a problem, and then we're just trying to make that work. We are an accidental business that was born out of a community that came up with a model in order to survive and then learn along that long period, along that time. What that means is that people would then predetermine what they think we are based on our past and not where we're going in the future. The way I like to describe us in investment terms is that we're probably the oldest pre-seed company that I know. Metaphorically, we are, excuse the startup pun here, but we're at base camp, I think. There's a big mountain ahead. People will think we're probably at the top of a very small mountain, but for me, there's a much bigger mountain there, and we've just started climbing it. So to kind of forget everything you think you know about Yena, because there's a lot of stuff coming. What does that mean, though? Well, essentially, we're looking to digitize and, in line with the last question, virtualize our offering even more. We're doubling down on that cultural shift. And where we started as a physical meetups company, we're still going to do those. We'll still be enabling people locally to connect others in their local ecosystems without barriers for free, because we've perfected that model, and it allows us to frankly spread our brand awareness around the world with very little to zero cost. That's awesome. But we're not a meetup company. We provide startup ecosystem by subscription. But over the time that we've done that, we've learned a bunch of things. We've learned what we're really good at. We've learned what we're bad at. And we've learned what gets us out of bed every day. We've learned where we want to go as a company, and we've learned what bits that we can really own. If we're going to be on stage talking about what we're good at in 3 years, what bit of the business is that going to be, is the question going to be asked about? And so we want to do a couple of things just to really give you kind of, I guess, like a hint as to where we're going. So we want to help onboard people into their own business. It's the only job in the world you don't get onboarded to, which is bonkers to me, because it's one of the most complicated and risky. We want to help do that. We think we could do that virtually using technology. We want to introduce people better. The way LinkedIn does it is, helpful, but is only based on people that I know. I'm not going to introduce you to my mum just because you both know me. That makes no sense. There's no cultural connection there. But if we do an email introduction, we take into account a lot more factors. And we think that, and we do that on a daily basis as part of Yena as a network, introducing people to each other. And we do that really well. So we're looking to virtualize, digitize that, and automate it. We want to help people build an economy within the community that we already see, but potentially without budgets, because a lot of people start without the money in their bank account and grow using what we like to call social value and social currency. So we've got some really interesting ideas around that really excite me, and I could talk about all day. And then the cherry on the cake is we want to gamify that experience. Running your own business should be fun. It is most of the time, but it can also be really stressful. Strava is the only thing that's keeping me motivated right now when I go for a run, and I get a little trophy every time I go slightly faster on a 5K. I don't get that for the next pound of MRR that I add to my bottom line of my business, and I think you should. So all of that, if you can read between the lines, equates to an updated version of the startup ecosystem that Yena currently provides. Everything we've done today just acts as the foundation. It doesn't act as the model. We're not raising money to just increase what we're doing right now. It will look like a pivot to the world a little bit, potentially even with thoughts of a new name, but we'll update you on that. You'll be among the first to know anyway, and we'll keep you posted on that. But yeah, I'm excited for what's to come. We've got the same challenges as everybody else, trying to convince the right people to invest in us, because there's a big opportunity there. And doing it all over Zoom at the moment, so it's fun. But we've got great partners and great friends to do that along the way with, including of course you guys and Ferrilio. So it's going to be a fun ride, I think, over the next 12 months.
Oh, I absolutely cannot wait, and I wish you every success. I know you well. I know you'll make it a success. Whatever you say about big mountains, I know nobody better at climbing big mountains than you, Ash. But that sounds terrifically exciting. Thank you so much for sharing those sneak peeks with us and our viewers today. That's all for today, folks. If you are starting a business, if you're thinking of changing your business, if you just want to connect up, share ideas, find sounding boards, feel like you're part of something, even if you are still sitting in your front room right now, like most of us, then do reach out to the Yena community, sign up, give it a go. It's free at the moment, so there's no excuse not to go and check out all the goodies and all that empowerment that you can have right now, today. Ash, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Ours too. That's all for today, folks. We will see you again next time.